I'm Megan Wolfgram, and you are in the press row.
Welcome to the Press Row. Behind the scenes stories from the world of sports media. Press Row. Insight and interviews from around the sports world. Now here's your host, Jonah Siegel.
Welcome back in the Press Row. Jonah here out in Seattle. A happy late October day. The sun is trying to shine on us today. It's been blustery cold. I hear that the East Coast is enjoying a Indian summer. It's apparently 80 degrees back in Toronto, Michigan, and Ohio, and we are freezing here in the Pacific Northwest. But anyways, nobody wants to talk about the weather. We got cool shit to talk about. You hear that? I said shit. My podcast, I can say whatever I want, right? So we've pivoted. That is the word of, this generation, is to pivot. We've kind of pivoted here a little bit, and I've started a new series, and I'm calling it the Founder Series. We still do the sports media stuff, and that's really fun, and it draws a lot of really cool, interesting folks. But my work passion is really entrepreneurship, digital, pets, e-commerce, and that. And as I've explained to a lot of people, for whatever reason, on the investment side, I tend to get involved in companies that are female-led, female-founded. And the last podcast that I did was founded and led by a really cool entrepreneur in the tequila space, something that is near and dear to my heart. And this week we are really thrilled to be talking with somebody in the pet space. She is Megan Wolfgram. She's the founder and CEO of Swift Paws, an American manufacturer of playful pet enrichment products. Megan has the unique distinction of having been on Shark Tank. I'll say it again. Megan was on Shark Tank. Not only was she on Shark Tank, but she successfully got a offer. I think she had multiple offers on her episode. I watched the episode myself live when it was on. I've seen it numerous times. Not only did she get offers, she accepted an offer, but more importantly, she was the recipient of that season's golden ticket from Lori Greiner. This was back in 22. And she's now on a mission to help people and their pets play well together using Swift Paws. Given that enormously long introduction, Megan, welcome, and how are you?
Thank you, Jonah. I'm doing really well. I like to say that I can't take myself too seriously because I do make dog toys after all. But thank you for the great intro.
So, first of all, where in the world are we finding you? How about that? Let's start there.
So I am currently in my hometown. I was born and raised here. It's the east coast of Florida, technically Brevard County. So Swift Paws is also based in Melbourne. I grew up in Palm Bay. I currently live in Malabar, and those are all within about a 10-mile stretch of each other. And this hasn't always been home permanently. I did go away for college and have been elsewhere, but I've always come back here.
All right. And so for those of us who don't know exactly where that is, what is the biggest city near you that perhaps we have heard of near you?
Yeah, so I like to say that we're about an hour east of Mickey Mouse and an hour south of where the shuttles launch or the rockets nowadays. And
did everybody near and around you survive the not one but two hurricanes that were kicking around this year?
It was a double whammy. Super fortunate to be on the East Coast. The West Coast had it a lot worse. And unfortunately, North Carolina is still trying to recover, and they don't typically have effects from hurricanes. It's like they were blindsided. So we came through really well, a little bit of flooding, nothing major, but I really feel for those who are more affected.
Okay, so you grew up in and around where you are now, in the greater northeast corner of Florida?
Yep, and really central Florida. So if you fly into Orlando and you go straight east, that's about where I am.
If you grew up in Orlando and you go straight east, you're going to get very wet, would be my geographic conclusion.
We're only about 10 minutes from the beach.
Okay. And did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or what led you to that conclusion?
Good question. I'm lucky that entrepreneurship was on the table for me as a kid. I got to see family members, many of them, including my own parents and aunts and uncles, who were entrepreneurs of their own. I have a few family members that have patents to their names, And I think a lot of times kids growing up don't think about it as a viable path. But it wasn't something that I set out thinking I was going to do. So I did go to college. I got a degree in economics. I thought I was going to do something in the finance world and maybe, I don't know, go for a master's degree, go for whatever, be an economist. And that quickly kind of didn't come to be after I graduated. So I just took things one step at a time and really fell into what then became Swift Paws. But I did not set out going, I want to start a business. I want to make a product. I want to sell a product. So it's been a learning journey. I'll say that.
And when you say it didn't go as expected when you graduated college, or didn't lead to be how it's supposed to be, what does that mean?
Yeah, I was so gung-ho. So I was a kid who graduated, early. I was doing summer stuff, just very, very type A, had that 4.0.
I'm so surprised to hear that.
Yeah, right? Surprise, surprise. Like outgoing Megan is just all in. And I really thought, I loved my school. I went to DePaul University in Indiana, smaller liberal arts school with a big focus on these like specialized colleges. So they had this program that was kind of like a management fellow, sort of an entrepreneurship and business program. But a lot of the kids in that program, it wasn't really a focus on entrepreneurship for them and a career. It was more focused on, we're going to go out, we're going to make connections, we're going to do internships, and we're going to get great jobs straight out of school. So pretty much a good portion of my graduating class knew what they were doing. I had been accepted to Teach for America, which I very strongly wanted to do. And I had an interview, second stage interview, which would have been an in-person interview with an investment firm in Chicago that a friend of mine who graduated a few years prior was at. And I just that summer, a couple things changed. I took a tiny bit of time off right after graduating to visit some friends in Seattle, actually, and then came home and learned that the Teach for America wouldn't work out. They had assigned me to a Miami-Dade area teaching high school seniors, and I was just turned 21. And so I was like, I stand the chance of being basically a peer teaching students who speak a language that I don't speak, and it was uncomfortable. So I asked if I could be anywhere else teaching anything else, just younger people than me. And they said you could transfer, but you still had to go into your placement, be there for 4 months, and then request. And so ultimately, I had pursued that for a while, and I said no to that. And by that time, I had let the other opportunity pass by, and I thought, well, what now? And that's scary when you're really, it's hard to be disappointed in something you don't have an expectation for. And I'd really set myself up to fail, thinking I'm going to be that kid who graduates, takes a week off, and goes to work. And there I was, a couple months into the summer, and just nothing, no prospects on the table.
So what'd you do?
Maybe not the best choice, but it did work out in the end. I thought, you know what? I'm going to take the rest of the summer off, and I'm going to do it without any strings attached, not beating myself up. I'll look for job opportunities, but I'm not going to beat myself up over not having gone straight into a placement. And then when I would be going back to school time, I'll buckle down and really, if something hasn't materialized by then, I'm going to make it my job to find a job. And I had this dog at the time, that's Pretzel. He did pass before I went on Shark Tank, actually, but that little dog was a bit of a jerk. He really didn't like other people. He didn't really like other dogs, but he loved food, and he was my whole heart. I got him when I was 16 years old, and it's a very transformative age, and that was my sidekick, and I loved doing dog sports, not really competitively, but just for fun. So I was doing dog agility. So I was into dog agility that summer. I asked my dog trainer, what other dog sports could we try together? Because I'm taking a summer off. And she introduced me to the sport of lure coursing, which was the big rabbit hole that led me in about 6 months' time to running my own course for the first time. And then a year later to founding Swift Paws.
Isn't it interesting how, in retrospect, it all started with being kind to yourself? And an opportunity went awry, and you could have stressed yourself out and spiraled and forced yourself into something and being...
I did that for a while. The panic did happen.
But ultimately, you decided to be kind to yourself and allow yourself the opportunity to be and to do, reassuring yourself. I don't know this. Like, we've never talked about this, you and I. We've met numerous times and we spent quite a bit of time together. But you really did allow yourself to be kind to yourself and to listen to yourself and to let yourself be. And ultimately, that was what set the foundation for you being successful.
Yeah. It makes such a clear path looking backwards. But if I put myself in that mindset that I had at the time, it was so uncertain. And now I'm like, oh, yeah, like, who's going to be mad at a kid for taking a summer off? But it was such a big choice for me because I hadn't taken a summer off. I had done summer classes like straight out of high school all the way through college.
And to be clear, that doesn't mean that you're not driven and that you're not goal oriented and that you don't have a North Star, but it just means that you're not kicking the crap out of yourself and you're not beating yourself up, right? That's the difference.
Yeah, and to not be in a hurry for something that isn't super clear to you. So like once those things didn't pan out, I was really scrambling. I thought, maybe I need to go back. Maybe I need to jump into a master's program. And you just your brain just starts scrambling. And it was about that time where I was like applying to dual JD MBA programs. And I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I think I need to take a break. And you're spot on. I haven't thought about it like that, but that's spot on.
So often I encounter people that can't sleep and are having a very difficult time sleeping. And most of the time it's because they're like me and they can't shut their brain off. And I think a good chunk of it is just that they can't shut their brain off because they're not being kind to themselves, because they're trying to figure out too many things and there's too much stress in their life. And I wonder if they could just take a deep breath and say to themselves, this is going to be okay and this is going to figure itself out. And I don't need to figure this out at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., or 3 a.m. They might be in a better place. And perhaps, your story is inspiring that it's okay to take a deep breath and not figure it all out at the minute of the crisis.
I hope so, because you come up against that again and again in life. And that's one thing I've learned is that it doesn't really get any easier per se, but how you handle it is one thing that you can control. Because that's anybody's journey, but especially in business when you're trying to run a startup, the lows are like super low. They suck. And they don't stop coming, right? Like there's always going to be that next wave. And for me, actually, you recommended a book. I was going on a trip. I had like a 6-hour-long flight. And I was like, hey, anything good to read? And you recommended a book by the former, I guess maybe he is current again, Disney CEO, Bob Iger. And there's just like a resonating theme in that book was this idea of like kindness in people first. And yeah, so meaningful, so impactful. And it's like, yeah, actually you do have to sweat the small things when you're the business owner, but you can be kind to yourself and still sweat the small things.
Okay. So Mr. Producer is going to flash up a video of Swift Pause and what it is. But for those of us who are listening via audio podcast only, can you explain to the audience what exactly Swift Pause is?
Yeah. So our hero product, the product that was on Shark Tank, because we do have more than one thing, but the thing that has made us who we are is basically a game of chase that you can play in your own backyard with your pet. So think of it like a series of pulleys, like a clothesline pulley, where you've got this string and it's going around a series of pulleys. You get to create a course in your backyard. You set that string wherever you want your dog to run. And then you have a motorized pulley where you control the speed and direction of a fake squirrel that gets tied onto that string. And so you're zipping it back and forth and all around that course. And your dog or cat gets to chase and catch to their heart's content. And so it's this really fun activity that you do together. It's very interactive, although the dog's getting way more exercise than you are. And that's kind of the point. But it's also it's a heck of a lot of fun. And it satisfies a lot of needs in dogs that it's hard for us to otherwise satisfy, like that prey drive, right? We say we take prey drive and we turn it into play drive. And it's so important to give them healthy outlets for that energy.
Okay. So you work with, in agility, And voila, you decide there's a gap in the market. There's nothing for at-home use. So what happens?
Yeah, so I wish it was like kind of that simple, but I started out, it was a sport. So agility is a competitive dog sport. I think most people have seen that on TV. But
it's basically running your dog through an obstacle course.
Yeah, they're like weaving and they're jumping and they're going through tunnels. It's very exciting. So there are many dog sports. Agility is not the only one. And lure coursing, where they're chasing after the fake squirrel or rabbit, is a sport as well. I got really lucky, right? Good timing has a lot to do with success in life. I discovered the sport and then ultimately got into it and started making my own equipment the same year that the American Kennel Club, which is one of the larger organizations for dog sports in the US, opened up a version of the sport to all breeds of dogs. So prior to 2012, you could only compete in lure coursing if you had a sight hound, a greyhound, a whippet, a saluki. And if you didn't have a purebred sight hound, you literally could not compete in the sport.
You could participate, but you couldn't compete.
You couldn't even participate. It was just the only thing you could do is go to an event and hope that at the end of the day, if they had time and they weren't tired, that they would just let you run for fun.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the AKC, and I discovered the sport in 2011. That dog was a miniature pinscher. The dog that got me into it, Pretzel was his name. Clearly a miniature pinscher is not a sight hound. So when my agility trainer told me that the most fun she'd ever had was lure coursing, I was like, well, what is that? So I looked into it and I was like, well, he loves chasing stuff. So I got to try it. And there was nowhere really to try it because he's not a sight hound and I couldn't enter him. And so that led me down a rabbit hole of like, well, I'll just buy a machine and they cost like $4,000. Like, well, I'm not even a starving college student anymore. I'm a broke, jobless, recent college grad. So I was like, well, I'll make a machine. How hard can it be? And that really is the famous last word. So my dad and I, in our living room, literally built a very crude but workable machine. And Pretzel, he loved it. Like, it's like he found his calling. He saw that thing zip across the yard and he lit up like a Christmas tree and he took off. And I think he would have run until he dropped. He enjoyed it that much. So then I was like, well, this is cool. I'll do it for my agility friends as a last hurrah before I buckled down. This was October. It was supposed to be September, but it was October of 2011. And I was going to buckle down and start to look for a real job. And I thought, as one last hurrah, I'm going to invite all my agility friends out. A friend of mine had a horse farm. She let me use her front pasture. And we made pulled pork. We played music. And it was just supposed to be like a one and done. Everybody wanted to try this thing that I had built. And like the word got out, 60 people showed up, 60 dogs showed up. And we weren't planning to charge money. Like there was no business plan there. And those people had such a good time that a number of them asked me, when's the next one? When are we doing this again? This is great. So I thought, well, I don't have a job, so how about next month? So it turned into a once a month. I quickly outgrew the Friends Horse Farm. I had to go to a local park nearby in the city. And then that was the birth of what I ended up calling Lure Course Brevard County, the county that I grew up in. So that became a once a month event. We started charging like $10 to run. We've never changed our prices. It's the same today. We don't run every month anymore. The schedule is a little too crazy, but that's what it was. And then the following year, so 2011, 2012 was the first year that the American Kennel Club opened up a version of the sport. And now all of a sudden, every breed of dog, every size, every shape, the mutt that you adopted from the shelter could compete. And there I was with a professional grade machine that I had built that was perfectly suited to running all shapes and sizes of dogs. And so that's the good timing element of it. So we didn't get started making it for home use. We got started making it for the AKC, for the UKC, for all of these all breed lure coursing sports. Because I'll be super honest, my pro grade equipment can't run the sight hounds. It's not powerful enough to run the length, the distance that they run, but it's really perfect for running what is the short distance all breed coursing sports. And so by, your sports channel and by happenstance, I've ended up on ESPN a number of times because we now run what's called Fastest Dogs USA, which is broadcast on ESPN every year. So in a very roundabout way, I guess this does go back to sport.
So you've got two models then. We're going to cut to the end, then we're going to come back. So you have two models. You sell this commercially and you sell it to the consumer. Is that right? Yeah. So it was commercial only, B2B, for the first 7 years.
And then I was like, gosh, if I don't make a backyard version, somebody's going to. It became the fastest growing canine sport in the country by number of entries.
So when you say that, how big are we talking so people understand?
We're talking over 600,000 entries a year. And it grew, it like tripled in a span of a couple of years. So now by comparison, agility is much larger. Agility has over 1 million.
But still, that's a lot of dogs.
A brand new sport to like blow up that quickly. That's a lot of dogs running a lot of times.
Okay. So you then decide that you got to go after the consumer.
Yeah, we would go to events where people could just run their dog for fun. It's fun run, not a competitive, not a just as a way. Because the other thing that we did was we sold professional grade equipment to dog trainers, doggy daycares. It was a value add for their existing businesses. So we'd go into a town, they'd have a bark in the park, and we'd set up a little demo course. The idea wasn't to make money, but we'd charge $10 to help cover our airfare, right? You got to be scrappy when you're an early entrepreneur. And we'd pay for our plane tickets in our hotel, and we'd go to the event, and we almost would never come home with a machine because the dog trainer in that city would go, wait, you just made $1,000 today? I paid $1,000 to be a vendor here. And right. You're walking away with $1,000 to cover your expenses. So then they would say, what is this? Because, people didn't know it. So we would sell them that. We'd say, well, this is what it is. And really, we'd love for you to buy one because everybody who ran here today would love to be able to do it again in their own communities. So we were selling to businesses and we were selling to AKC clubs and places like that for 7 years. And at those events, the primary target was not the people who were running their dogs. It was the businesses. But I heard, no joke, probably tens of thousands of people over 7 years say they would let their dog loose. The dog would start running. They'd take out their phone. They want to video it. And then they would turn to whoever they were with and they would say, we need this in our backyard.
Right.
And that was like, if I heard one more person say that, I was really going to beat myself over the head because that was it. I was living in a world where I had access to this whenever I wanted to in my backyard, but nobody else did.
Okay. So what year did you actually go and build the consumer model?
We stopped making pro-grade equipment in 2017, like mid-year. By April 2018, we had developed enough of an idea of a prototype to launch the home version on Kickstarter, which was successful. We then shipped the first ones and built the first batch in early 2019.
And how did you end up on Shark Tank?
That was wild. I thought it wasn't real. I thought it was fake. So 2019, right, is a tumultuous year because we successfully shipped Kickstarter, which was
How much did you raise on Kickstarter?
A little over $70,000. Our
Okay.
goal was 20. So pretty successful for us. It took us about in total, about $150,000 of development costs and tooling and all that stuff. We then pre-sold after the Kickstarter, and we still probably came out of pocket about $30,000 to get it done. But by March, April of 2019, we were shipping that first batch, and we sold out in like July of that year. So now we've completely sold out of product. My business partner, I had a business partner early on. He came to me and he's like, I'm expecting my first grandbaby and this is turning into a full-time job and I'm going to need to find a way out. So 2019 is like, holy shit. I'm like, wait a minute, it's just getting good. We were in very different phases of our lives. We balanced each other really well, but it was like, oh my God, I have no product. I have a little bit of cash in the bank, but not much. My business partner wants out. What the heck do I do? And it took us the better part of that year. And thankfully, like I have to say, he was definitely older. I also admit wiser at that time. And he knew that it had to be done carefully so the business could continue on even after he was out of it. So thankfully, like, I'm not saying we agreed on everything. We've certainly butted heads, but he cared enough about me and the business to make that transition be one that wasn't going to hurt the business moving forward. So by November of that year, so we sold out in July. And then by November, I ended up buying him out of the business. And then I had nothing. I didn't have enough cash in the bank to buy materials for the next round. So I had to fundraise. I did my first round. I started at the week of Christmas. I closed in March of 2020 and then COVID hit. So I'll fast forward. COVID hit.
How much did you raise?
I raised $500,000.
Okay.
And I did that on a convertible note. I was so fortunate. Again, timing. I know people who had deals who weren't quite to the finish line, and they didn't close because everything got really seized up at the beginning. It opened up again with a vengeance after, but I know people who didn't stay in business because they didn't get that. So I got so lucky to get that. And without that funding, I probably wouldn't have made it. But we got back in stock. So we got back in stock by June. It got delayed, but we got back in stock by June of that year. And then that year we did 300% more than we had the year before, because we had, for the first time ever, a product for the holidays. This is a great giftable item. So we had product for the holidays. We did like, I don't know, it was like close to 400K that year. We only had product June to December. Then 2021 is the glory year, right? 2021, the first year Swift Paws has ever had home product all year long. We did just over $1 million in sales for the first time, right? Like 1.1 million. It felt so good. And in August, just a cold email came in on our website email form saying, hey, I'm a producer for Shark Tank. Have you ever thought of applying to the show? And my customer success person filtered that email and said, hey, this might be nothing, but you may want to take a look. And I was like, this looks like a scam. So then I we had a call, and she's like, yeah, I'll send you over the application. She's like, have you ever thought about it? I was like, have I ever? Of course I've thought about it. Like, I don't think my baby's ready, but of course I've thought about it. So she also, the application wants like your social security number. So I'm like, oh, this is how I lose my identity. So it took me a little bit of time to figure out that it was real and that she did work for the appropriate entities. And from the time I did the application to when I was literally in LA taping was like 6 weeks. So it happened so fast.
Okay, so you submit the application. What happens?
Submit the application. It's like a whirlwind. There's like, I would say hundreds of pages, but that's exaggeration, of material. So the show, people don't know this, but the show does its own due diligence before you even get on. So they want to make sure that you're legit, that you're not wrapped up in crazy legal stuff, and that you're actually making the money that you say you're making. Because otherwise you could kind of say anything,
right? And
it could all be a lie. So the show, before the sharks even see anything, they look into you, and there's this huge there's like multi-stages of applications. And then they kind of say, hey, like, we'd like to have you come out and film. Because there's never a promise. There's never a promise that you're going to get to the next stage. And there's never a promise that you're going to
even after you filmed, I understand they don't promise that it's going to air.
Yeah, because things have happened in the past, like news cycle takes over because of a tragedy or something happens, right. And then that one might never make it to air. So, or they might pull you, right? Like something could happen. So there's never, and like Shark Tank is such a gamble, and it's such an investment of time. But I was really lucky because 6 weeks is zero time. I didn't have a chance to panic over it, and I think that was really an advantage. Like I just had to go.
Okay, so you go through numerous rounds of application, and they finally say, all right, we want you to come to LA to film.
Yeah, they're like, we want the crazy dog lady. And so I go, okay, well, if I'm going to come out there, you have to see it. It's a very visual product. And the sharks have to see a dog lose its mind and chase after this thing live. Or it's, you could show a video, but you just have to see it. And they're like, okay, well, we've got dogs out here. I'm like, I'm not taking this unknown dog I don't know. Like, is the dog going to poop on the carpet? Like,
right.
How do I know? So like, no. Like I need to be out there with my dog. So we, again, like crazy, only had a few days to figure it out. Disney is the parent company of, the ABC. So like I had to send pictures of my dog. Like she had to be approved for TV. It's this whole.
Do they pay for your travel?
Yes. So I will say Shark Tank as a earned, right? We'll call this an earned media, right? So you're not paying to appear on the show. The show itself does not take a cut from the businesses. So they are paying for the production, but they also own it, which is why if it doesn't make it to air, there's no promises.
Correct.
Yeah. So they fly you out there, they pay for that, they put you up in a hotel.
So you fly out there. What happens when you get there?
I get there, and it was September of 2021. Okay. So COVID regulations were still very prevalent. And this is done at Sony Picture Studio in LA. So this is like Culver City. Like these are the lots. You're driving in the little golf cart when you get there, and you see Wheel of Fortune, and you see where all the stuff is done. It's crazy cool. But when you first get in, they take you. I flew in and I flew out within about 36 hours.
Right.
So it really feels like it happened to somebody else. But you fly in, they take you straight the hotel. You have to do a COVID test. After the test, you cannot leave the hotel. They're like, stay in for the night. So
because of COVID.
Because of COVID. This was,
right.
So let me just say my situation was unique. In years past, and maybe now, I don't know, you would stay there for a few days, you get to do dry runs. It was a lot more relaxed, but now it was like go time. So you went in, right. COVID test, don't leave that hotel. Luckily for me, my setup was really expensive. So then I was like, okay, if I'm going to do a live demo, I have to have AstroTurf, because like I'm a big safety nut. I've got a bunch of built-in safety in my equipment, and like we're talking about a high impact activity, and dogs are like athletes. They're going to go hard. So I was like, I cannot run my dog on a slick surface. I'm not going to do that. So I ended up getting AstroTurf, and I had AstroTurf brought in to set, and then because I couldn't be there before because of COVID, they literally like cut it and taped it down, and I had to trust that when I got out there, because you only get like one chance to look at it, make sure it was good. I had to trust they were going to they set up my equipment. Oh, the anxiety, right? Of like, I couldn't
But when you walk out there, do you get any interaction with the sharks before this?
Zero.
Nothing.
Nothing. You get nothing.
And I would imagine that you're part of like, I've been on sharktank.com, like some message group or something where you talk to, is that the norm? Like there's no interaction before?
Yeah, zero interaction. Like I would be surprised if anybody has ever had interaction. And in fact, like one of the rules is that like you can't have pitch to one of the sharks, because the show is about, they don't know who's walking on. America doesn't know who's going in. And I really believe that they do not know who's coming in.
They may not know who's coming in, but they know what they're coming into. Like they're sitting on a set, and the set is set, and you all have put in front of them a demo or some type of sample.
What they get to see is about 20 minutes of set change, and they might be getting water or whatever, but they're sitting there for a few minutes, and they're seeing, before you walk out, they're seeing all of that. So
in a sample, you have something for them to take home with them.
Yeah,
right?
So it's a food product, or it's a dog product, or they probably start to get an idea.
But you don't think that they've seen a deck or a video before?
I doubt it. And here's why I say it. Because I taped for an hour and a half, almost an hour and a half. Okay. You only 30 minutes on TV. I was 30 minutes into Q&A when in my head I was like, oh, there's a lot to unpack here, and they know nothing.
Gotcha.
There's actually a moment where I talk about the sport, and Mark Cuban, and I believe it's genuine, he goes, it's a sport? Like, you just get this, and it's like, okay, they don't know anything about my business.
Okay. So when you walk out, so you're standing in the back, they're like, all right, we're going to start taping in 4, 3, 2. What's going to happen is the music is going to go, the voiceover is going to go, you're going to walk out. Is that all they tell you?
Yeah. So let's talk about like the run through. So they do tell you, you need to walk through the doors. So prior, everybody who's filming that day, you go out, you kind of like, they're like, here's the hallway. The sharks aren't there. They're like, you need to walk out. You need to go up to this point. You need to stand there. So, they tell you the function, but it's maybe like 20 minutes. Like there's not a whole lot of time. It's not like you get to be out there with your set at all. And then I was very fortunate because I was the first one of the day. My setup was so extensive that the AstroTurf, because you don't know. Somebody could take 30 minutes. Somebody could take 3 hours. So you only know the order that you're filming in. And I was first. So I had a call time. Nobody else did. I knew I was going to be walking out there at 8 a.m. And that was such a blessing to me, because like with who I am, the kind of person I am, like I was so pleased that
you're down there at 7:15. Yeah. You're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
At 8 o'clock, they're like, all right, go. And down the hallway you walk.
Yeah, it's the only time you have a camera in your face is down the hallway, because there's a guy in front of you walking backward.
Okay. And you walk out there, and they're sitting there. What's going through your mind?
Oh my God. I was so ready at that point, and I had my dog with me. So my thing was, I was so worried that, because she is very eager, she's a happy dog, loves everybody. So I didn't want to walk too fast, because I didn't want to run over the camera guy. And then once I get out there, I like stop and I look up, because they tell you don't look down. And I looked down, of course. I'm like, look down to get to the spot. And I look up, I'm like, oh, gotta look up. And then there's no action, but you kind of have to wait while the camera's adjusted. It's the only awkward moment, because once you start, there's no cut, There's no do-over.
So the only awkwardness is from the walk to go.
Yeah. So then you're
and can you hear the voice? Can you hear the voiceover?
You cannot. So I don't even know if they're doing that at the same time.
Gotcha.
So all is silent. The sharks are standing there sitting there looking
Right.
at you, and you're looking at them,
Uh-huh.
and you're waiting for the producer to say begin.
Okay.
And that's your cue to start your pitch.
Okay. And when he says begin, hi, my name is Megan.
Yeah. And that was super easy because I had done it forwards and backwards 1,000 million times by the time.
How far into it before they interrupt you?
Well, it's actually kind of a hidden, not so well-known rule that the founders are supposed to get 90 seconds. Like you get your 90-second pitch.
That's it.
And
90 seconds.
90 seconds. And during that 90 seconds, like the sharks aren't supposed to interrupt. Like they say, like you need to know it, you need to practice it. And when they say you get your 90 seconds, but then once it goes into Q&A, all bets are off.
Right. So the 90 seconds ends with who wants to blank with me, right?
Yeah, who wants to make dog toys with me, right? Like whatever
Right.
that's going to be. And then it's like, oh, I have samples, right? You kind of go into the flow.
Right.
I was trying to do a live demo in my 90 seconds.
Okay.
So I was terrified. The other thing I was terrified of was that my dog, who loves this more than life, was not going to want to be caught after this. So I had to and it's easy. You turn on the thing and
I remember.
take the leash off the dog, and then the dog runs. And I thought I was gonna have to tackle my dog. And like, of course you would see that on TV. Like if I had to dive and tackle my dog, they would be showing it. So I practiced collaring her, like with treats, like collar. And so I get to that point, I set her loose. And when dogs and kids, right, it's all unpredictable, but she runs beautifully. The sharks, like I knew they were gonna love it, but it went through the roof. The energy was through the roof. They're on their feet. They're cheering. She catches it. They're like, touchdown. It's amazing. I say, Piper, collar. I hold out the collar. She collars up beautifully. And I'm like, oh, whew, I'm going to make the 90 seconds. So I go to bring her back to me to finish, because then I was going to finish my pitch.
Yep.
You don't see this part on TV. This is like a hidden. Mark Cuban points at me and he goes, do it again. And now I'm deer in the headlights because you're not supposed to interrupt you.
Right.
And so I'm like looking left and right, like who, what? And he goes, no, do it again. And just like that. And you don't see it, but I kind of go, okay. And I take her leash off, and I know why he did. Like, obviously the sharks are very good at their job. He did it because during this round, like I ran her again, and you only see it as one cut. They brought the boom camera in and they followed her around on the ground. And so I guarantee you, like, he saw how magical it was. And he was like, the camera needs to get in there and get those angles. But like, how amazing was it that he had the presence of mind? And then I was like, well, the man asked for it. So if I blow past my 90 seconds and the producers are mad, like, blame Mark.
Not your problem. Okay. So you do that.
Yeah.
And then, so at the end of that, do you finish like, I'm Megan, like who wants to invest with me? Or you just pop up from that?
Yeah, no, I finish it. I finish the demo, and then I finish. There's like very little left. So I say the rest of it. And then I'm like, okay, who wants to give it a try? Basically.
Right. Okay. And then the questions start?
Yeah. So then they're like, at first they're fighting over it because only one remote can control it at a time.
Right.
But I gave them all a remote, and I was like, now look, guys, one at a time, because of course, like kids are like fighting over it.
Of course, especially those kids.
Oh God! So we get through it, and Mr. Wonderful's remote wins in the end. So he's literally like running Piper in circles because his remote got the signal, so he was just pinning it, right?
Uh-huh.
So then he's having it, and they're all saying like, stop it, give her a break. So he finally stops it. Piper catches it, and I'm like, okay, I believe she needs a break. Like, she deserves a break. So I run her to the back. I hand her off to somebody on the crew who was kind enough to like get her some water, and then I run back out, and then the Q&A is like wild crossfire Q&A for an hour and a half after that.
And during the Q&A, it's nonstop fire hose, right?
Yeah, and like I didn't realize it, but everybody's individually mic'd, and so one of them will start asking a question, and before they finish, the next one will start, but this one doesn't stop, and they can isolate their mics afterwards, and they don't. I didn't know what it was going to be like, so I don't know who to answer. Oh, it's everything all at once.
What surprised you the most about that part of it, besides what you just told me?
how competitive they were to ask their questions with each other. They were like jumping in there.
And they're not listening to each other's answers, right?
They don't care. They're like, my question. It really is crazy crossfire.
And when you went in, did you know who you wanted an offer from in your mind?
I found out who my panel was going to be like 48 hours before I flew out.
Okay.
They said, okay, here's your panel. And I was like, okay, it's going to be an OG panel, right? You got Mark, you got Damon, you got Mr. Wonderful, Kevin, you got Lori, and you got Robert. I was like, okay, so now, and I obviously had research because there's guests, like we talked about, there's guests. And everybody wants to guest shark, but when you're pitching, the OG panel works really cohesively with each other. So it's kind of good to have.
What's OG panel for those who don't know?
Yeah, so the original sharks, so there are a few have come and gone, but the original sharks would be like, you know, the ones who are on almost every single episode. Right. So those are the ones that you're going to see over and over again. Some of them come and go, but there's like that panel of, I think it's 5, 6, because you've got Lori and you've got Barbara who will interchange.
So Barbara wasn't on your show, was she?
She wasn't. I had Lori, and typically Lori and Barbara won't tape on the same episode. So I had Lori. Yeah.
So did you know who you wanted?
Yeah. So I researched it, and my mindset going in was every single, like if any of the sharks saw enough in me and my company to make an offer, like any single one of them could add value. I know people go on and they're like, oh, I wouldn't want to do a deal with this person. I'm like, these are all wildly successful entrepreneurs in their own right. I would be dumb. If they see something in me, I'd be dumb to be like, I don't want to do a deal with you. So, but secretly, right, like after all my research, I was like, okay, Robert's a dog guy. He's got dogs, got Malinois. Like he gets the high energy dog needs to let out off some steam. I knew he would get it. I was like, okay, Damon has dogs too. And he's a branding guy. So I'm like, okay, maybe. And I was like, you know, would love to have Mark. I think anybody would be silly not to entertain an offer from Mark. And he's a sports guy. And like we had some sports thread. And then I thought, oh, I adore Lori, adore her. And you know what I thought? And this comes back to self-worth and being kind to yourself. I thought she really goes for stuff that's extremely widely attachable, like stuff that millions and millions and millions of people. And yes, there's millions and millions of dog owners, but my product is niche. It's expensive. And I thought, I don't think Lori's, I would so love to work with her. I don't think she's going to go for my product. Okay. And so I couldn't have been more wrong, obviously. Spoiler alert, did the deal with Lori, but they were all so kind. That's the other surprise. Every single one of them, including Kevin O'Leary. He plays a heel on the show, but so incredibly kind in person. So you don't see it, but so kind in person.
Awesome. And what surprised you the most about the whole process, like the entire process?
Yeah, I think from start to finish, it's something that you have to be so secure in what you're doing, because you can get knocked off balance 1,000,001 different ways. And by the time they say it takes a decade to make an overnight success, I don't know who's credited with that, but that was 10 years after I started, was when I was pitching to the sharks. And so I think the whole process is like a fire hose from start to finish. It's not just the hour and a half that you're taping. The entire thing is very intense.
Hang on, Mr. Producer, pause this for a second. I'm sending somebody a message. Give me 1 second there, Megan. Hang on.
You're fine. Actually, I'm going to check on the foster dog because I think she's making some trouble. Let's go see what she's doing. Give me a moment. Good girl. She's actually getting adopted today. Let me see if I can.
Cool.
This is Molly. Hi, Molly.
So cute.
She's super cute. She has scoliosis. I've never met a dog with scoliosis, but I do try to foster 1 or 2 dogs in a year. And it's super rewarding, and it makes me want to pull my hair out and question my life choices. But she came out of an Osceola County shelter, picked up as a stray, and it's really neat to be with them on their journey and then see them go into their new home.
Okay, so you go through the whole process. How many offers did you get?
Yeah, so ultimately, 3 sharks went out first. So it was like Kevin went out, and then Damon went out, and I tried to get him back in. And then Mark was saying like such nice things about me. He was like, God, you're doing it just the right way, and you're the perfect entrepreneur who only needs a little bit of help. And like, he was just so kind. He was buttering me up. And then he's like, I'm not the right fit for you, but good on ya, right? So then he goes out, and then Robert was trying to figure out, like, wanted to make me a deal. So Robert was like, okay, well, if I came in at the same valuation of your last raise, so you don't see that, because I think a lot of it would be super boring, because we talked about so much more than you see on TV. We talked about the nitty-gritty of my first raise and the valuation and the cap and the this and the that, and stuff that I think would really get lost in the shuffle if you tried to show it.
Which is why they don't show it.
Yeah, exactly. And it gets really technical really fast, like what percentages and all this stuff. And so Robert was trying to figure out, like, okay, if I made her a deal at this and this, and it was while he was working out his numbers to make me an offer, that Lori jumped in. And then she started just saying all the flowering, amazing things. And I was like, okay, Lori, like, you're buttering me up. You're gonna let, like you can see it in my eyes, because they like cut to the close up, and I'm just like, thanks, Lori. Like, you're so nice. And yes, I love you too. And then she like pulls out the golden ticket. And I'm a fan of the show. I've seen the show. Like, I've seen the golden ticket. And when I saw the golden ticket in a previous season, my thought was, that's cool. That'll never happen to me. It was literally like, I just dismissed it. Should have been kinder to myself. She pulls out the golden ticket, and I knew exactly what it was as she's like holding it up. And I just go, like, I just start blubbering. That's it. I was gone. Or they made me look really good. Like, I cried so much more than they showed on TV.
All right. So she makes you an offer. You know, spoiler alert, you accept the offer.
Sorry, Robert, I'm going to take Lori's offer.
Right.
And I mean, he literally says, well, I wasn't going to offer you that, because her golden ticket means she doesn't negotiate. She gives you what you went to ask.
Yeah. Can't do better than that.
Yeah. So Robert's like, I wasn't going to do that. And so then I'm like, okay, Lori, like, yes, crying, hugging. I the whole time on a pedestal next to me, we had set one of my field pulleys, because on the bottom of every pulley are the paw prints. I've got one here. If you're not listening and you're watching, you'll see it. I'm holding up a pulley, and Pretzel's paw print, literally, that's his paw print, is on the bottom of everything.
Fantastic.
So I meant to say it. You just forget. It was standing right there. So as Lori's holding up the golden ticket, you see me, like, I should be smiling and laughing. Instead, I'm like, and I'm like reaching for the pulley, and I like pull it over, and I'm like, his paw print.
Right.
Losing it. And of course, you know, I accept the offer, and we hug, and then I wear it. So I've got it on a chain. She hands me the golden ticket after we're done taping, and she says, don't lose it. It's real gold.
Hilarious. So what happens after?
So the show, obviously, many seasons. The producers, the team are very good at what they do. And I have to say, I taped on the very last day of taping for all of season 13. So it was very bittersweet. Everybody who works together, it's almost the same crew of people every year. And it's a cycle, right? So they're together for 6 months, and then they all go off and they do other shows, and then they come back together. So it was like the last day, right before I walked out, the like lead producer was like, hey guys, it's been an honor this whole season, and I would love to share with you the teaser for season 13. And so like I'm standing there at the doors ready to go, and they like play the teaser for that season, and the whole crew is like emotional, and he goes, and it's my pleasure to tell you that we've been renewed for a 14th
Right, so the place goes nuts.
The vibe was insane. It was insane. So like, again, timing, like you try to be kind to yourself, but I wonder, had I been on day one instead of the last day of taping, like, you know, all this cosmic stuff that comes together. But after you film, you walk out of the carpet, and they kind of do post interviews. So as I'm walking out, I've got Piper, my dog, waiting for me, and you kind of turn a corner, and I turn the corner, and I lock eyes with the person who's holding her, who happens to be the person who did the first call with me.
Right.
My Ashley. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's you, and we're meeting. And so we lock eyes, and in that moment I realized, because my dog is pulling, she's going to let my dog go, and that she thinks my dog is going to like joyfully run into my arms. And I'm like, my dog only wants to get back out to her toy.
Right.
My dog is going to crash the set as we're trying to break it down. So I'm like, I like stop, and I'm like, okay, which way is she going to dodge me, left or right? And this is all the cameras in front of your face. They're still rolling.
Yeah.
And I think they do show this, but I catch her in a hug. I'm like, Tiger!
Right. So it's perfect. Well, what happens at like how soon do you hear from Lori's people, and then what happens?
Yeah,
in summary.
Really good question. So I actually got to meet her husband the same day. So to make a long story short, her husband's also like part of the team and business manager. And he kind of goes over next steps with me, and then you start due diligence. And that process for us took a long time. Obviously, last day of taping, she had a lot of deals to work on for that whole season. We did. So a lot of people ask like, oh, did you actually do a deal? We did close on a deal. A lot of people don't. So I'm super lucky to have Lori on my cap table. She's been an amazing mentor and advisor. I've got her cell phone number. Like, she's so, I don't know how the woman does it for as many companies as she does it for, but she's so responsive. It's really inspirational is what it is. And that she does it year after year after year for company after company.
So you still do talk to her?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like, you know, she's not flying into Melbourne rolling.
No, I got it.
To fill orders. But, okay, I'll give you an example. We met, I think, initially through one of the Purina events. So Purina has this Pet Care Innovation Prize that we're one of the winners of. I needed recommendations as I was applying to the prize. So I reached out to her and said, hey, Lori, like, would be so cool to get a recommendation from you. I did that at like 9 p.m. in an evening. I wake up the next morning at 3 a.m. She had not only personally replied to my email, she'd already written the recommendation.
That's awesome. And okay, and what were sales like after the show aired? Okay,
so we did like 1.1 million the year before, and then that grew to like 1.5 the year that we aired. And it was Shark Tank. Airing on Shark Tank is the gift that keeps on giving. Every time a rerun comes on CNBC, we see a spike. I don't even have to know that it's happening. I can look at the website traffic and sales, and I can tell you that was a date that we re-aired.
And what does the unit sell for online?
So now we have a whole family. The big response from Shark Tank was, we love it. We wish it was more affordable, which I knew.
Of course.
And so we've developed now a more affordable version that we call Chase. That one retails for $2.99. Home Original, the version I took with me into the tank, is $4.99.
And where do they buy it?
Swiftpaws.com, or we're also on Amazon.
And as a podcaster, you're never supposed to ask a question that you don't know the answer to, but here goes.
Deep end.
For my listeners, for a short amount of time, will you offer some sort of discount code if they place an order on your website?
Heck yeah, we can make it whatever code you want. We'll figure out the details, but absolutely.
All right. So if anyone goes to swiftpaws.com and enters the code PRESSROW, they will get some sort of discount if they order in the next 7 to 10 days. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds perfect. And you know what we'll do is we'll run it up through the holidays, basically.
There you go.
So people are thinking about holiday purchases, so we'll give them time.
Okay. So Mr. Producer, for those on YouTube, flash it up there. For those listening, go to swiftpaws.com, SWIFTPAWS.com. Buy something, enter the code PRESSROW for a discount now through the end of holiday 2024. Megan, thank you so much for doing this. This has been so much fun. It's great to see you. Congratulations on an incredible career thus far. I'm so excited to see what comes next, and I enjoy talking to you each and every time we get together, and I hope we can have you in the press row again.
Jonah, likewise. I don't get a chance to talk with so many people who are so incredibly like self-aware and in tune with not only what they're doing professionally, but also just in life. And I enjoy every conversation that we have because it's not easy, but choose your hard, right? It's hard working for somebody else. It's hard working for yourself. Choose your hard. So this has been a great conversation, and I look forward to the next one.
Awesome. Till next time, everybody. Thanks. Have a great day.